My name is Lena Whitmore, and I was 34 years old the night I realized that some families don't explode when they break. They fracture quietly, politely, with smiles still on their faces. For 12 years, I had built my life around being dependable, predictable, useful. I was the one who never forgot a birthday, never missed a school pickup, never said no when someone needed help. While my younger sisters were busy building families of their own, I built a career, one brick at a time, climbing my way to a senior analyst position at Crawford and Finch. Long hours, late nights, promotions earned, not gifted. From the outside, my life looked impressive. Inside, it felt narrow. No husband, no children, just me, a downtown Seattle apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a phone that never stopped buzzing with family requests. My boyfriend, Evan, liked to joke that my family treated me like a subscription service, always available, automatically billed. I used to laugh along. That Wednesday afternoon, I was reviewing a client presentation when my phone lit up with my sister Lauren's name. At 28, she was the youngest, the cheerful one, the one everyone excused because she was still figuring things out. "Hey, Len," she chirped. "Got a minute?" I minimized my spreadsheet. "Sure, what's going on?" "So, you know Mom's turning 65 in 6 weeks, right?" she said, dragging out the pause like she was waiting for applause. "Of course." "Well, we're planning something really special, like really special, and we need everyone to chip in." That got my full attention. "How much?" When she said the number, my fingers froze above the keyboard. It was more than I'd spent on my last vacation, 4 years ago, if you counted a work conference in San Diego as a vacation. "I know it's a lot," Lauren rushed on, but it's Mom, and you're doing so well, you know." I didn't argue. I never did. I opened my banking app and transferred the money before the doubt could settle. "Done," I said. "Thank you," she breathed. "Oh, and one more thing. Make sure you take a full week off work around her birthday. Don't plan anything else, okay? It's really important." The request felt odd, vague, but I agreed anyway. The weeks that followed blurred together, meetings, deadlines, late-night emails. Occasionally, I wondered what exactly my sisters were planning with all that money, but every time I asked, I got the same response. "Trust us. It's a surprise. You'll see." Then came the Saturday dinner. We gathered at my parents' house in Bellevue. Mom and Dad, my sisters Lauren and Bethany, Aunt Patricia, and a handful of cousins. The familiar chaos wrapped around us like muscle memory. Dad told his fishing stories. Mom hovered, refilling plates no one asked to be refilled. For a moment, it felt like home. That's when Lauren spoke up. "So," she said casually, pushing food around her plate, "we finalized everything for Mom's birthday." Everyone leaned in. "We're spending a full week at Mountain Ridge Lodge." The table erupted. Mom beamed. Dad talked about ziplining. Bethany started planning hikes. I blinked. "Wait, when did this get decided?" Lauren frowned. "We told you." "No, you didn't," I said. "I don't even have hiking gear, and that's soon." The room went quiet. Too quiet. Mom cleared her throat, and something in my stomach dropped before she even spoke. "Well, sweetheart," she said gently, "we were hoping you could help us out and watch the kids while we're there." I stared at her. "Watch the kids?" "All 6 of them," Bethany added quickly, like it was a small detail. My mind counted automatically. 6 children, all under 8. You want me to stay back while everyone else goes?" "You're so good with them," Mom said. "They adore you." I looked around the table, waiting for someone to laugh. No one did. "But it's your birthday," I said. "I want to celebrate with you." Bethany sighed. "Come on, Lena, you'd be bored anyway. It's loud, crowded." "Bored?" My voice sounded unfamiliar. Lauren leaned in. "She just means, it's not like you have kids or a husband to escape from. The rest of us need this break." Something inside my chest tightened painfully. I stood up. Without another word, I grabbed my purse and walked out. Behind me, I heard Mom say, "She'll come around." She always does. That night, pacing my apartment, memories flooded in. Every sacrifice, every quiet yes. By morning, I knew something had changed. And I didn't yet know how far I was willing to go, but I knew I wasn't saying yes this time. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling fan as it traced slow, useless circles above me, my mind replaying the dinner again and again. Every pause, every look, every carefully chosen word that revealed just how little my presence had mattered in their plans. By morning, exhaustion settled into my bones, but beneath it was something sharper. Awareness. For the first time, I wasn't just hurt, I was alert. As I made coffee, Memories surfaced uninvited, lining themselves up like evidence I'd ignored for years. I was 18 again, standing at the stove, stirring pasta while Mom sat at the kitchen table, helping Lauren with college applications. "You're so independent, Lena," she'd said back then. "You don't need as much help." At 20, I turned down a summer internship in New York, an opportunity my advisor said could change my entire career, because Bethany needed help watching her newborn while our parents took an anniversary cruise. Family first, Mom reminded me. At 23, fresh out of graduate school and already juggling 2 jobs, I paid part of Lauren's wedding expenses because she and her fiancé were a little short. It hadn't felt like sacrifice at the time. It felt like responsibility, like love. But seen through last night's lens, it felt like something else entirely. By Sunday morning, I convinced myself there had to be a reasonable solution. I wasn't confrontational. I never had been. Surely, if I approached this calmly, logically, they'd understand. I waited until 9 a.m. before calling Mom. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've been thinking about the lodge trip, and I think I found a solution that works for everyone." Silence hummed on the line. "What kind of solution?" she asked cautiously. "I'll hire a professional nanny," I said. "Someone licensed, background checked, great references. They can stay with the kids during the day so everyone, including me, can enjoy the trip." The pause stretched too long. "That won't work," Mom finally said. "Why not?" "We don't trust strangers with the children," she replied, firm now. "They're comfortable with you." "I'll be there too," I said. "Just not alone with 6 kids the entire time." "You're overthinking this," she snapped. "You've always enjoyed spending time with them." "That doesn't mean I don't want to celebrate your birthday." Another sharp pause. "Lena," she said, her tone shifting, "you're not exactly a social butterfly. You'd be uncomfortable with all the noise anyway. This way, you have a purpose. Everyone's happy." The call ended before I could respond. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the hollow click echo through the quiet apartment. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed again. "Lauren." "How dare you?" she hissed the moment I answered. "Mom just told me about your little nanny idea." "I'm trying to help," I said, sitting up straighter. "I'm trying to find a compromise." "We already have a plan," she snapped. "Everything's booked, everything's scheduled, and now you're being selfish." The word landed hard. "Selfish?" I repeated. "I paid for part of this trip. I took time off work. I just want to be included." "This is exactly why you don't have kids," Lauren shot back. "You don't understand what it's like to need a break." My hand trembled around the phone. "So I don't deserve one?" "If you ruin this trip," she said coldly, "don't bother calling me again." The line went dead. Messages started pouring in after that. From Bethany, "Family sticks together." Another, "We all help each other out." Then, "You're amazing with the kids. Why are you making this about you?" I stared at the screen, my chest tight, fingers hovering. "A real family doesn't ambush one of its members," I typed back. "A real family asks instead of assumes." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared. No reply. And suddenly everything clicked. The vague money request, the insistence I take time off, the last-minute dinner reveal. This hadn't been a misunderstanding. It had been a strategy. They'd planned this weeks ago, while I was working late, while I was babysitting, while I was being exactly who they needed me to be. They'd already assigned me my role: free childcare, financial contributor, silent supporter. And now that I'd stepped even slightly out of line, the manipulation had escalated. Guilt, anger, threats. Something inside me shifted. The guilt I'd carried for years began to lift, replaced by a strange, steady calm. I opened my laptop. Within an hour, I had booked a solo trip to Maui. Nothing extravagant, but beachfront, private lanai, ocean views. I upgraded the flight too, first class. If I was going to be selfish, I was going to do it properly. The days leading up to the trip passed quietly. No calls, no texts. I imagined them assuming I'd come around, that I'd fold like always. I packed light, sundresses, a swimsuit, a novel I'd been meaning to read for years. The morning of my flight, I took one last look around my apartment. Everything clean, everything in order. Just like my life had always been. Except this time I wasn't staying behind. As the plane lifted off, I powered down my phone and tucked it into my bag. For the first time in years, no one could reach me. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. The air in Maui felt different the moment I stepped outside the airport. Warm, salted, unrushed. Palm trees swayed lazily in the breeze, and for a brief second, I just stood there, suitcase at my side, letting the unfamiliar quiet sink in. No crying children, no ringing phone, no unspoken expectations humming beneath every interaction. My resort was exactly as promised: clean lines, open space, and a private lanai overlooking the ocean. When I slid open the glass doors and saw the endless stretch of blue, something loosened in my chest. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding myself together. That first afternoon, I walked barefoot along the shoreline, the sand warm between my toes. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done anything without checking the time, without anticipating a call or a request. When was the last time I'd chosen myself without justification? I swam. I ate dinner alone at an oceanfront restaurant without anyone needing me to cut their food or wipe sticky hands. I watched the sunset bleed into the horizon, sipping a cocktail I couldn't pronounce, and felt peaceful. For 6 days, I lived like someone whose time belonged to her. I took a surfing lesson and laughed when I fell. I hiked to a waterfall without worrying about anyone else's stamina. I slept in. I read. I let silence exist without filling it. At night, lying in bed with the sound of waves outside my window, memories still surfaced, but they didn't sting the same way. They felt distant, like scenes from a life I no longer lived. On the 7th morning, I sat on the lanai with a cup of coffee, watching the sun climb. I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. Whatever chaos I'd left behind was waiting. I turned my phone back on. It vibrated instantly. Then again, and again. Messages flooded the screen. Timestamps stacked like dominoes, all starting a week ago. Where are you? We're outside your apartment. Lena, open the door. The kids are tired. Are you home? We brought everyone like we planned. My stomach dropped. As I scrolled, the tone shifted, confusion melting into panic. This isn't funny. Answer your phone. What are we supposed to do with 6 kids? Then anger. You selfish witch, you ruined everything. Mom's birthday is destroyed because of you. My mother's messages came later. I'm so disappointed in you. I never raised you to behave like this. My father sent just one. Your mother is crying. Voicemails followed. Voices sharp, accusing, wounded. Extended relatives chimed in. People I hadn't heard from in months suddenly invested in my morality. I sat there, the ocean still stretching peacefully beyond the glass, realizing something important. They weren't worried about me. They were furious that I hadn't shown up to play my role. I packed my suitcase slowly. By the time I boarded the flight home, the guilt they'd always relied on no longer worked the way it used to. Something fundamental had shifted. I was done explaining myself. I was done apologizing for refusing to be used. As the plane descended into Seattle, I braced myself, not with fear, but with resolve. I didn't know exactly what waited on the other side of my front door, but I knew I wasn't the same woman who had left it behind. I had just finished unpacking when the pounding started. Not a polite knock, not a warning. It was aggressive. Demanding, like the door itself had personally offended them. Before I could even reach the hallway, I heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock. The emergency key. The one I'd given my mother years ago, back when just in case still sounded reasonable instead of threatening. The door flew open. Mom entered first, eyes blazing, face tight with a fury I'd never seen directed at me so openly. Bethany and Lauren followed close behind, flanking her like reinforcements. All 3 of them looked exhausted. Wrinkled clothes, dark circles, raw anger spilling out of every movement. For a split second, none of us spoke. Then Lauren exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she screamed, stepping into my living room like she owned it. "You ruined everything. Everything." I stood still, my suitcase still open behind me, sand clinging stubbornly to the soles of my shoes. The calm I'd carried home from Hawaii wavered, but didn't break. "I didn't ruin anything," I said evenly. "I went on a trip." Bethany scoffed. "Oh, don't play dumb, Lena. You disappeared. You left us stranded." "With your children," Mom snapped. "On my birthday." They all started talking at once, voices overlapping, accusations flying so fast they blurred together. Greg and Brandon refused to stay with the kids. "We had everything planned. You embarrassed us, Vifafers. Your father couldn't even enjoy the ziplining." Lauren stepped forward again, hands clenched. "I missed Mom's birthday because of you. Because you decided to act like a spoiled child." I blinked. "You stayed home," I said slowly, "because your husband wouldn't watch his own children." Silence rippled for half a second. Then Bethany jumped in. "That's not the point." "No," I agreed. It's exactly the point. Mom's voice rose, sharp and brittle. All we did that entire week was explain to people why you weren't there. Do you know how humiliating that was? I felt something crack, not painfully, but cleanly. I laughed. The sound startled even me. They froze, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. What's so funny? Mom demanded. What could possibly be funny about this? I wiped at my eyes, surprised to find tears there, not of sadness, but disbelief. Don't you hear yourselves? I asked. You planned a vacation without me. You used my money. You told me when to take time off work. And then you decided, without asking, that I'd stay behind with 6 kids so you could celebrate. And now you're furious because I didn't show up to be used. That's not what this is, Lauren insisted, but her voice wavered. Then what is it? I asked. Why didn't you invite me? Why didn't you ask me if I wanted to go to the lodge? Why was my role already decided before I even knew the plan? No one answered. Mom's expression hardened instead. You've always helped before. And that's the problem, I said quietly. You stopped seeing me as a daughter or a sister. I became a solution. Bethany crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. Am I? I gestured around the room. You showed up uninvited. You used a key I gave you for emergencies. You're screaming at me in my own home because I didn't sacrifice myself the way you expected. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. You've ruined my birthday. The words landed like a final test. I felt the last thread of hope snap. No, I said. You ruined your birthday when you decided my presence didn't matter unless I was useful. Her face went pale. This isn't how I raised you, she said coldly. You raised me to put everyone else first, I replied. You just didn't expect me to stop. She straightened, drawing herself up like a judge delivering a verdict. If this is who you are now, she said, then maybe I don't have a daughter named Lena anymore. The room went still. I had imagined this moment before, feared it even. I'd always thought those words would shatter me. They didn't. If that's what you want, I said softly, then so be it. Lauren gasped. Bethany stared. Mom said nothing. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them hard enough to rattle the walls. I stood there long after they were gone, the quiet settling in like dust. For the first time, I didn't chase after it. It's been 8 weeks since that night. 8 weeks since my mother stood in my living room and told me she didn't have a daughter named Lena anymore. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. No apologies, no attempts to reconcile, just distance, clean, deliberate, and absolute. At first, I kept expecting my phone to buzz. A late-night text from Bethany. A carefully worded message from Mom pretending nothing had happened. Even Lauren, backpedaling, looking for a way to smooth things over without admitting fault. None came. Instead, the commentary moved online. My mother was the first. Some people forget who stood by them when they needed it most, she posted one evening, paired with an old family photo where I stood slightly behind everyone else, camera in hand. The comments flooded in. Sympathy, validation, righteous anger on her behalf. Lauren followed a few days later. A photo of her son, Jackson, mid-laugh. Family should always come first. Blessed to have people who understand that. Bethany was more verbose. A full paragraph about toxic selfishness and people who abandon their responsibilities. No names mentioned, none needed. A few months ago, those posts would have destroyed me. I would have replayed every interaction, searching for the flaw in myself. I would have drafted responses in my head, agonized over whether to defend myself, whether to stay silent. Now I just scrolled past them. Sometimes I even smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because it no longer controlled me. The first weekend after everything fell apart, I woke up early out of habit, already bracing for a call that never came. No emergency babysitting request, no guilt-laced plea, just quiet. I didn't know what to do with that at first, so I went for a walk. It started as a short loop around my neighborhood, then stretched into hours. Eventually, I found myself signing up for a local hiking group, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. The first hike felt strange. I kept checking my phone, half expecting it to ring. It didn't. Instead, I climbed, breathed, laughed with strangers who knew nothing about my family dynamics or expectations. For once, I wasn't someone's solution. I was just there. At work, I noticed the difference too. I stopped volunteering for every extra project. I left on time. I took lunch breaks without apologizing for them. When Evan asked how I was really doing, I didn't brush it off. I told him the truth. It hurts, I said, but it hurts less than staying did. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. That alone felt revolutionary. A few weeks later, on a random Tuesday night, I booked a trip to Italy for the spring. No coordination, no checking calendars, no asking permission. I saw a good deal and took it. That simple act, deciding something for myself without justification, felt like crossing an invisible border. Sometimes in quieter moments, I think about the kids. I miss them. I miss their voices, their questions, the way they'd run to me when I walked into a room. But I don't miss the way they were used to anchor me in place. I don't miss being told that loving them meant erasing myself. I hope that someday when they're older, they'll understand. I hope they'll recognize the patterns early enough to choose differently. The emergency key still sits in my junk drawer. I've picked it up more than once, turning it over in my hand, thinking about mailing it back. Each time, I stop. Not because I'm waiting for reconciliation, but because returning it feels like another explanation, and I'm done explaining. The truth is, I didn't lose my family all at once. I lost the version of them that only existed as long as I complied. That's a painful thing to grieve, but it's also freeing. Yesterday, I deleted the family group chat from my phone. No announcement, no farewell, just a quiet exit. Some might call that cruel. My family certainly would. But I've learned something important over the past 8 weeks, something I wish I'd understood years ago. There is a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. Selfishness takes without care. Self-respect refuses to be taken from. I spent most of my life confusing the two. Now I don't. I'm Lena Whitmore. I'm 34 years old. I have a career I worked hard for, a home that finally feels like mine, and, for the first time in my adult life, I have space. Space to breathe. Space to choose, space to exist without obligation. And I'm not giving that up again.